Welcome to the Healthy Skin Show with Jennifer Fugo, where we're flipping everything you've been told about your chronic skin issues upside down and connecting you with alternative solutions your dermatologist never told you about.
Welcome back to episode number 156 of the Healthy Skin Show. In today's episode, we're going to talk all about topical steroid withdrawal. We've talked about this before, but I wanted to highlight one particular voice. My guest today actually put together a documentary that has been pivotal in helping some of my clients and many in our community determine that they actually have topical steroid withdrawal, because it's not an official diagnosed condition. There is no diagnosis, and it is very common to have your doctor tell you that nothing is wrong, even though you know something is terribly, terribly wrong, that it's beyond just a rash or a flare, that something is not quite right. Since today's conversation went a little long, I want to dive straight in. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Today, my guest is someone I've been really looking forward to speaking to. In fact, she can attest to it. I kind of stalked her. I was asking around. I was trying to get people to connect me. We emailed her multiple times. I was literally on this hunt because a client of mine who believed that she had something called TSW. You guys have heard me talk about this. It was topical steroid withdrawal, had come across this documentary on YouTube. And it just opened her eyes, because she could not, and no one could explain to her why she had this myriad of symptoms. It was just being blamed initially on eczema, and then her doctors were looking at all of these random, weird, rare diseases because they couldn't figure out what was going on with her. And this entire time, everything came down to TSW. And so the documentary changed everything for her. And so I found the creator of the documentary. She's here today. Her name is Briana Banos. And Preventable is a documentary that highlights the consequences of overprescribing topical steroids, as well as showcasing the detrimental effects this can leave in a patient's life. Briana was a former professional dancer and aerialist for Royal Caribbean, and now teaches dance and theater at a charter school in her hometown. She is an avid believer in speaking up for yourself and being your biggest advocate. And so I just want to say, first of all, thank you for being here, and thank you for everything that you did to create this amazing documentary.
Oh, this is exciting. I'm happy to be here.
Well, so for those who have not seen the documentary and don't understand even why you did it, what was the reason behind why you created Preventable?
Well, as many can probably attest, when you go into a doctor's office and you have these crazy symptoms and you tell them, I think it's because of topical steroids, they look at you like you're a crazy person. And you don't feel heard, you don't feel backed up, you don't have any support. And that was what was happening to our community, and it's probably happening to a lot of other communities. But for ours specifically, I know so many people felt alienated. So many people felt like they couldn't go to any doctor and feel like they could get any sort of answers, because they were going to be called crazy. They're going to be pushed out or laughed out of the room simply because they felt that the steroids were doing this to their body, and a doctor's telling them no, like that could never happen. So I know when I got sick, everything fell apart. I lost my job because I couldn't dance anymore. I also did aerial performing. I had just gotten my personal trainer certification. That went out the window, couldn't be a personal trainer. And I was always someone who was very active. And so sitting on a couch was very depressing. And I think it was about month 4 into it, I started losing my hair, and I ended up making a video of me shaving my head, because anyone in my life knows I had very, very long hair, and it was like an appendage, and it was like a part of me, and it was like the last feminine thing I had, and it was gone. And I was like so sick of thinking that I was going to sit there and let that happen to me. So then I started making YouTube videos and little things to like have people laugh, because if you're not laughing, you're crying in that state. So I wanted to spread a little more humor and light on this subject. And then I started talking with people from ITSAN, the International Topical Steroid Addiction Network, and working with them, like alongside them. They took me to a conference with them in September of 2016, 15. Oh my gosh, it was such a long time ago now. I just started seeing like the advocacy and the passion behind people really wanting to make a change. And after a while, I just felt like I could do more. And I just remember thinking, well, why not make a documentary? And I will tell you, I bit off way more than I thought I could too. I created a website. I created an LLC as a business, because I didn't want people thinking, oh, I'm taking your money that you're donating to me and putting it into my personal pocket. I just really wanted to create something that brought all of our stories together, because our voice in each doctor's office wasn't enough. And I just wanted to bring them all together to show people, like, you're not alone. This is not just a one-off thing. I circumnavigated the globe to show, like, this is everywhere. This is not just a one-off case.
Yeah, exactly. And with your story, and now I want to just be clear, and I always like to remind people of this. This is not specific to eczema, by the way. So topical steroid withdrawal can happen to, you can have psoriasis. You cannot even have eczema. You could be a mom that is slathering their child with steroid creams, and you end up getting it. So this can impact pretty much anybody. And we're exposed to a lot more steroids than we even realize, because it's not just steroid creams. It can be through inhalers, through nose sprays, all sorts of stuff. So for you, what was the reason that you needed steroids to begin with?
So, growing up, I had eczema, but it was very manageable. Even my mother, I would ask her, like, did I use steroids when I was younger? And she's not even sure. She's like, oh, we would go to the dermatologist, but they give you, like, an oil here, or, like, recommend this there. I was always manageable. And, of course, looking back, I'm thinking, me looking in the mirror going, oh, my God, my eczema is so bad. I was like, I had, like, nothing. And what happened was, when I first joined the cruise ship industry, you as a performer live on board, and a lot of our clothes, they don't get washed right away. Like, I was the costumer, and you could only do a section after a show. So all these really sweaty costumes are like smashed together. And I'm pretty sure, along with the circulated air that happens when you're living below deck, I caught what I think is probably a fungus, because all my skin started going crazy, and it was the worst I'd ever seen my skin. And we went into a dry dock, which is when our ship is like having maintenance. And during that week, it happened to be in Miami, and I'm from Homestead, so I'm really close to Miami, Florida. And I went and saw a dermatologist, and she just looked at me so reassuringly, and she's like, I know exactly what you need. And I felt like, oh my gosh, like relief. She threw the kitchen sink at me. She not only gave me topical steroid, I was on an antibiotic, I was on an antifungal, I was on 2 different kinds of antihistamines, and I was on Protopic, which is another immunosuppressant drug that they use as an ointment. And that's when the whole adventure began, with the use of all these steroids. Because once I got off of it, my skin was never the same again, and then it would blow up once I went back on the cruise ship, so they put it back on. And then I was on it, I think the longest stint was like 6 months, like using it like every day, like all this stuff. And I got married in 2014, and my mom was like, maybe after the wedding you should like go off all this stuff, like give your body a break. And I started to realize I couldn't. Anytime I would stop using the steroid, my body would just start blooming it would start, my wrists and my stomach and my back would be on fire, and it would just spread. And then my eyes started swelling, and it was crazy. And we didn't know what was going on. We thought maybe it was an allergy or something. And lo and behold, it was just being stuck on the steroid.
And I think one important point you make is that, like, the steroids can do a lot. They can do a lot to help people in certain instances, but I think long term, in the way that we're also advised to use them. I know I've had Dr. Peter Leo, whom you've interviewed on the show, to talk about how he recommends people use topical steroids in his practice to just help people have a little bit of guideline here, because I think a lot of times you're not giving clear direction. But most people think that, oh, well, you must have used this for a really long time and it must have been a prescribed, like, high potency steroid cream. I'm just using over the counter. I'll be fine. What would you say to somebody who said that?
So for me, like, I have a lot of people that come to me, especially because, like, I know people that have kids and everything, and they get really anxious when it comes to steroids. And honestly, I think some people should be, because a lot of doctors aren't necessarily telling you how to use it, what they're giving you, what type they're giving you. But I think it needs to be made clear that there are cases of people that were just using over-the-counter hydrocortisone that you can find at a store. When I first started going through this, one of the girls that I used to talk to regularly, thank goodness for Facebook and stuff where you can interact with other people, she had just used over-the-counter, and she was just as bad as I was. And especially with little kids, you know, they have, like, their skin is so brand new. And when you have a 3 or 4 month old that starts to get eczema and a doctor tells you to put on a steroid, like, their body is going to soak that up. And it could be a week of use and they could go down the rabbit hole with that. And then when it comes to being prescribed, like, the super potent, which a lot of research will try and tell you, like, oh, it's just the super potent ones that, you know, you should sort of be careful about. I was on a class 6 steroid. So that means there's class 7 through class 1. Class 1 is the most potent. So I was, like, in a bottom tier topical steroid. So, and this all happened to me. So it's just, I think people aren't aware of even what they're using, and they just needs to be made clear, like, a topical steroid in general, used the incorrect way, this can happen. And I don't say that to, like, scare people, but I feel like we have, especially in this age of trusting whatever a doctor says or feeling invincible, like, oh, that's a one-off story. That's crazy. I'm sorry that happened to you. I'm going to go continue slathering myself in this because it's not going to happen to me. You don't know that. And I think that's what a lot of doctors, I feel, are hard pressed to, like, not advocate, because they'll sit there and say someone has very severe eczema even though they've been on topical steroids for their entire life. And I could sit there with them and say, okay, if that's what you think, but you can't negate that it can possibly be the steroid that's doing this to them, not they just have really bad eczema. I was like, this could be inducing this really bad eczema that they have. And there's not really much I feel they can go off of to say, no, it's not that.
Yeah. And I understand where you're coming from. I mean, one thing that really shocked me when I was looking at research, oh gosh, probably a year and a half ago, of how topical steroids impact your health. And what I didn't know, you know, again, like, when, and many of you know this who are listening, that when I had eczema, my dad gave me a steroid cream. My dad was a doctor, and he flat out told me, use this as little and as sparingly as possible. Do not use it every single day. I didn't get the reason why. He just was like, just trust me, just don't. So I got a warning that most people don't ever get. And I feel incredibly grateful for that. But the problem is that topical steroids are essentially cortisol, which is the hormone that your adrenal gland produces. And so by applying that constantly, it then tells this one piece of your endocrine system, you don't really need to do your job.
Yeah.
And so it hijacks that. And so for children, there's actual data showing how much more susceptible they are because they are smaller. Their bodies are younger. I mean, we absorb this stuff through our skin. And so that's why again, and I agree here, this is not meant to scare anyone, but this is here to educate you. And if you have thought that this can never happen to you, or you don't use a high potency or even a mid potency, you're just using stuff at the store, that this is not you, it could be you. So here's my question to you. What exactly, you said like everything started to almost bloom and sort of go crazy and your eyes blew up and everything. At what point did you realize, like, the real light bulb went off, like, oh my gosh, this is a steroid cream. What the heck am I going to do?
Well, when I was trying to look for an answer, I turned to Google. And I think that's another thing that they try to negate.
Dissuade you.
Yeah. Like,
dissuade you. Yeah.
Looked on Google, like, crazy stuff's on Google. But I found a few girls, which I was grateful I got to interview for Preventable. I saw their YouTube videos and I was like, wow, I look like them. And they started pointing me in the direction of Itsan. And then I started seeing the list of the symptoms that you can get. Your eczema going to places that it never was before. Your eczema burns. It starts to spread. I had the really puffy eyes. I was extremely itchy. And I noticed that if I wasn't using the steroid, that's when it would get worse. Because the steroid will mask it. Okay, the more you put it on, the better your skin would get. There are some people that are far worse than that, where they're using so much and it's still not helping. And then their doctor has to put them on an oral steroid, which is what they tried to do with me. As soon as I got on a Z-Pack, like a tapering, by day 3, I was like, I feel so much better. But then like a day, 2 days after tapering down, I was back at it, spreading, going everywhere. And that's kind of when I knew that this has to be the steroid. I'm giving it a go. I went and had an allergy test done. I'm allergic to cats. Like, that was it. So that's when I knew that this has to be the steroid. My heart beats were really, really fast. I was having low blood pressure. I then had my adrenals and everything checked, and like things were through the roof and things were lower than they were supposed to be. My estrogen levels were off. It's just, everybody has a different journey. Like, some people might start even later. Like, I know Joey, one of our older Itsan board members who still helps out. She's not on the board anymore, but she was like 6 months into not using steroids was when things started going crazy for her. So everybody has a different journey, but I just know that going online and seeing other women that look just like me helped me find that answer.
And how long, when you finally realized this, so now we're here, you have this realization, how long did it take you? I mean, do you consider yourself better? Like, what does a journey look like for somebody? I know that the timeline differs. Some people could be like a few months. Some people take years to get better. And I'm going to put that in air quotes for people listening to this.
Honestly, no, I don't consider myself better. I'm actually just slowly coming out of another flare that I had. And I'm still to this day trying to figure out what is causing my flares. I still have not touched a steroid. And it is difficult. I'm much better than I was in the beginning, for sure. That was just misery. But I'm able, I can function now. I work at a school. I still have my trouble areas which is strange. Like, one of them is my hands, and I never had eczema on my hands. So to me, when people are like, oh, but like, aren't you way past, that stage now? And I was like, well, I've never had eczema on my hands. So why am I still fighting this? Like, I don't think this is normal eczema. Like, I never had this before. So I still consider myself going through the withdrawal process. And I'm 5 years into this, which some people are like, wow, that's crazy. And it is crazy. It really is crazy. And that's why I don't have answers to everything, and neither do doctors. So for me, like, spread awareness is the only way I can help someone not go through the frustration and the pain and the loss that I and so many other people have and are going through. So it's a different journey, like you said, for everyone. And my journey, I still know is not over.
And so obviously, I mean, it's a big life wrecker. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. I mean, let's be honest, that's what it is. I mean, you can end up not able to work. You can lose relationships. I have clients currently that are really, really struggling, even just with the emotional and mental impacts of this. Do you have any tips or strategies or anything that you can share with someone who might be like in the midst of this, really depressed, really upset, feeling like their entire life is crashing around them? I mean, obviously you said you're not better, but you might have some wisdom looking back that you're like, if I had known this might have made me feel a little better in that moment, or something that they could maybe do that you learned along the way that was helpful.
I think what helped me the most, because I was in that boat. I lost my job. I lost my health. I lost my hair. I lost my husband. My marriage is no longer. But I think what helped me personally was, one, finding the laughter in it, because you're in so much pain. And honestly, I feel the only way to keep yourself from crying is to find the light in it. And that's what kind of brought me to wanting to advocate, because I think sitting there and dwelling on the negative is only going to give you more negative. So I can sit here and I can tell you right now, like, I'm in pain right now, like my arms are bothering me, but at the end of the day, I don't want to be another reason why my life is crumbling because of my mindset about it. So I was always one to try and look at the things that I did have and the things that I could do. I never thought I'd be a teacher, but I'm doing what I can for myself, and I'm trying to make the best of that. I lost my marriage. Did I ever want to be divorced? No, I did not. But to me, that gave me another opportunity to focus on myself and find out what other things that I could be doing in my life. And it's still a struggle, but I try and find the grace in that struggle and of helping other people, of connecting with other people. I don't want to give myself or anyone a pity party, because I feel like that just sits you on a floor, instead of, like, I wanted to look at that ladder and start climbing back up. And I'll never forget, I was living with my mother, I was living in the guest house, and I tried to do a ballet bar, for the first time in a long time. I was bandaged, I had bandages, and I was trying to do a grand plie, which is basically like ballet for a deep squat, I guess would be like a simple term.
Sure.
And I struggled getting back up. And this is from someone who was like acrobat. I could do all these things. And I was like, my muscles were so atrophied that I struggled doing that. And I remember making a post like, wow, Bree is at 0 right now. I was like, but I found this quote that said, if all you can do is crawl, crawl. And so now I'm back to teaching. I can't perform still, but I just had a blast with my kids a couple weeks ago. We pulled out some mats, and I had a little girl that could do an aerial, which is a cartwheel with no hands. And I was like, Miss B used to know how to do that. And they're like, try. And I ran and I did it. And I shocked myself. Like, thank goodness my friend was filming me, because I turned around and just like screamed. I was just like, oh my gosh, I just did this. And so it's just like the baby steps of, yes, you're in a really, really bad way. And yes, the emotional component actually starts to feel heavier than the physical after a while. But it's just always reminding yourself, like, you're worth it, no matter what you look like or how you're feeling. Like, you just got to keep pushing and finding the things that give you the purpose of getting out of bed in the morning. Because if you don't have that, you're not going to want to get out of the bed. So like doing the documentary in and of itself, like I was so tired. I was so run down, but it gave me a reason to get out of bed in the morning to fight for myself. And so I just want people to feel, even though they might feel lonely, like that they can advocate, that they can speak up for themselves, even when it's hard. I was stuck in an allergist office a little while ago trying to get like another test done, and the doctor rolled her eyes at me when I mentioned that she asked me if I had any known allergies so far, and I said, well, I can't use steroids. And she rolled her eyes at me and said, oh, I don't even want to get into that. And I sat back and almost didn't say anything and just let her like talk over me. And even though I was like kind of shaking and I had tears welling in my eyes, I was like, no. I was like, stop. Like, this is how you talk to people. This is how you talk to a patient. I was like, I'm sitting here right now and I circumnavigated this globe and have a documentary out on YouTube right now. Probably know more about steroids than you do. I was like, so the way you're talking to me, I just want to walk out of this room right now and not listen to anything you say because you're not listening to anything that I'm saying. And I remember like the shock on her face. I was like, you just rolled your eyes at me. I'm like, is this what you do with your patients? Is this how you treat a patient? Because I don't feel very supported right now. And she was just shocked that I said that, but it felt so good to say. And then when I was laying there, she walked out of the room for a little bit and came back. She sat down next to me and she goes, so I did find like my documentary. She did see things online about this. She was kind of like, okay, I'll listen to what you have to say. Mm-hmm. And no patient should ever have to do that, but that's the boat that we're in. And good for you. Like, even if you cry in front of them, like, they deserve that. Like, they deserve to see the pain and frustration that you're in simply because a lot of doctors don't want to listen. And we have to make them listen at some point and somehow. And right now, the only way is by using our voices. So I just know, like, you might hit a really low point, but just keep fighting, hold on to things that you love. Even if you can't do them, like find new hobbies, find things that will keep you going, because trust me, your life is so worth living. Like cutting it off does nothing. So that was my biggest thing, of finding the laughter in it and finding the purpose of getting out of bed in the morning.
Yeah. That's a big deal. We have to find purpose every single day. And I've oftentimes said in moments when I just felt my worst, and I cannot, I'm not even going to compare my worst to your worst, because I don't, we all go through our own points. And I always said to myself, if I can't laugh at something, I think I have nothing at this point. Like, I have to be able to find something, at least at myself or in my situation, I have to be able to laugh about. Otherwise, I don't know what I'm going to do. But I want to make sure that people know how to reach you. You have, and we'll put all of this, by the way, in the show notes, but I would highly encourage you, whether you think you have topical steroid withdrawal or you're using topical steroids now, to watch Preventable, Protecting Our Largest Organ. It's available for free on YouTube. So there's no reason why you can't go and watch it. And in fact, I think it'd be something that is worthwhile, especially if you have a local support group or something. It'd be great to be able to show that as well. We need to build awareness about this to help prevent other people, A, from getting into this situation, and B, from getting lost in the medical system of just being told that you have all these crazy, weird conditions, or it's all in your head and you're overreacting. Because I hate to say it, it is real. This is a very real situation. And fortunately, I feel very lucky to have had Dr. Peter Leo on the show a number of times, who is a believer in this. And there's other physicians that have been on the show who also believe in this. But I also work with clients who have gone to see doctors who do not. And the reaction that they have shared with me has broken my heart because I know that like, while I'm upset, I cannot imagine being in their shoes, being told that, and they want to just crumble. And so it's important to me to share about this. So first of all, Briana, you are on Instagram.
Yes.
You've got your own YouTube channel. You've got websites, and also too, people can reach out to you personally, but you're also a part of ITSAN, correct?
I'm not a board member.
Okay.
I work alongside them.
Okay.
Yeah, they're incredible. I love them. I support them. I'm just not a board member. And I actually did that kind of on purpose. I don't want anyone thinking I'm affiliated, like that I have an agenda or anything. Like, I'm just a person trying to raise awareness about this.
And so you were sharing with me before we went on that if people are interested, you have a GoFundMe. If they found value, like I think that's one big thing here is that we need to support this community and make sure that this awareness continues to happen. So you've got a really great GoFundMe that people can support. So we'll link to that. And you were also saying too, the ITSAN donation page also is available that people can go and donate to ITSAN directly. But I really appreciate you for doing this. It means a lot, not just to me, but to I have clients that were like, feel like, they were like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. You're going to have her talk on the show. Super excited. And, I just feel incredibly grateful that you were willing to be here. And I hope maybe at some point I can have you back and we can talk about some other facets of this, this crazy journey that happens to a lot of people, probably a lot more people than we even realize.
Yes, I think that's a big thing of, there's probably a lot more people going through this than we actually even know about because they don't even know that they're going through this. They might just think they have really bad eczema or really bad skin, and it's a drug that they're using that's doing this to them. So,
Yep.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, no, this has been great. Thank you so much for having me and letting me talk a little bit about this massive journey that some of us have been on.
Absolutely. I am so appreciative that Briana was willing to join us today and be vulnerable in sharing her story and her journey around TSW, but also what went into the making of her documentary, Preventable. If you guys are looking for links for anything that we discussed, especially if you want to go check out the documentary, head on over to skinterrupt.com/156. There you can click through the links, access the documentary for free, and you can leave questions and comments. I'm sure Briana would be happy to answer them. And I would also love and encourage you to share your own story or your concerns around topical steroids and this conversation on that post. And the next step is to share this episode, share the Preventable documentary with people in our community. It is very, very important that we connect people with this information because wouldn't you want to know this before you ended up in this, I don't know, it's not a great situation. It really is life-wrecking for some people. And so the more we can each share with our communities, with our friends, with our Facebook groups, with whomever it is that you're connected to, if we share this information, we not only bring awareness to it, and hopefully at some point in time there will be an actual diagnosis for this condition, but that people who are suffering and who have no idea what's going wrong can finally have an answer. And before you head out for your day, take a moment, if you haven't done so yet, to rate and review the Healthy Skin Show on your podcast platform of choice. It means a ton. And if you want to share about this episode or about the show in general and how it has helped you, it would mean so much. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.